Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. This is part of our Young Ummatic Academics and Leaders Program, YUAL Seminar. And one of our distinguished participants is Dr. Yousuf Raza, who is a consultant psychiatrist and currently pursuing his PhD in psychology. He was associated with Dr. Israr Ahmed's Tanzim Islami and served as a Mudarris and Nazim Dawat Islamabad while he was with them. Currently, he is at the University of West Georgia in Atlanta, and he is aware of Tanzim Islami, an Islamic movement that has a significant impact, particularly in teaching the Quran, making Quran the center of Muslim life. And it is my pleasure to have him present on Dr. Israr Ahmed's thought, life and works, and inshallah we'll have opportunity to discuss as we go along. So without further ado, Yousuf, the floor is yours.
Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Thank you so much, Dr. Uthaymin, for this opportunity. I have benefited a lot from Dr. Islamabad, and to have this honor of representing some of his work, his thought, it is an opportunity to express my gratitude to him, I guess. So I will, of course, there's going to be people who will be listening to this, perhaps part of this class or outside, who will have corrections to make. Any inadequacies, I invite them to please cover up if there's something that I've misrepresented in any way. So I'll start off with...
I should say, on my own gratitude, I guess I should express my gratitude not only to Dr. Israr Ahmed, but to the movement and scholarship in the Muslim world in South Asia that he represented, his many teachers, which we'll be learning about. I should say that Dr. Israr Ahmed has had a deep influence on myself, on the Ummatics project, as have many of the other great pioneers of Islam in the contemporary period. Particularly what's distinguished about him particularly is his tafsir, his approach to the Quran, and the passion he brings to it, the depth of knowledge and total dedication that he brings that puts us to shame. If you don't mind, if you know something about how he lived, I mean, I was very surprised that this is somebody who dedicated all his life to his Tanzim. And I'm sure you will be talking about that as well. But I saw that he lived in one small apartment all his life, right? And very, very simple life, dedicated. He gave up his career as a doctor. And that's sort of, what he preaches, he lived. And the kind of, that's really the character that one sees in the Sunnah and among the Sahaba. So it's a lot more than meets the eye. But even what meets the eye and what meets your ear when you listen to his tafsir, both in English and in Urdu, he's fluently able to express himself in both languages. But his Urdu is just absolutely beautiful, poetic. So I encourage everyone to take a listen. So I wanted to say that before you started. I'm sure have a chance to get well.
There's very few people, and they say you shouldn't meet your heroes, but with Dr. Israr Ahmed, he was the type of hero that if you had learned from his lectures or his books and you got a chance to meet him, he wouldn't disappoint. To practice what you preach, something that so many of us struggle with, he really took it to the next level. He raised the bar very high, and I think it was Ek Din Jio Ke Saath, a program and the host met celebrities and saw their lifestyle. And like you said, he was living in this one room. This, I believe, in 2002, and the bed that he was sleeping on is from 1955. And he was asked that this old furniture, this one single room, don't you want the comforts of this life? He's like, everything of comfort is available to me in this room. I don't need anything else. So, and as we go on, talk about his biography and other anecdotes that do reflect his practicing what he preached, inshallah, we will get into those as well.
Inshallah, may Allah increase his ranks and give him all the reward for his da'wah, and may Allah allow us to follow in those footsteps. So please.
Okay, so the life and works of Dr. Israr Ahmed. So he was born in 1932. This is British India. He's born in Hisar, which is modern-day Haryana in the northern part of India. today. And he speaks, he was born, his father was a fairly well-off government servant, civil servant at that time. He speaks of his mother being the primary influence of his religiosity. He said that his father wasn't all that religious, but his mother really inspired him and injected that fervor for religion for him. As he was growing up, he, of course, felt the plight of the Muslims, of the Indians under British rule. And he was very nationalistic from the get-go. He describes that in 1938, when Allama Muhammad Iqbal, one of the founding fathers of Pakistan, poet, philosopher, one of the influences of Dr. Israr as well, he said, when he passed away, even though I was 6 years of age, I felt that as a personal loss, that I characteristically remember the pain or the grief at his passing, even though I was a little kid. And by 1942, he said, most of Allama's notable poetic works I was reciting by heart. Like I was singing them whether I understood them or not. And most of Allama's poetry, as we will get around to, and we specifically focus on him, was ummatic in its essence, and it's the message that he proclaimed. It was right around a little before high school time. He's General Secretary of Muslim Student Federation, so he's actively participating in the freedom struggle for Pakistan. He is advocating for All India Muslim League. He's actively involved in the whole process. And by this time, he's also read Maulana Maududi as well. So his activism for Pakistan is for Islamic reasons or religious reasons that he's picked up, although at that time, as we may talk about later, Maulana Maududi himself was not much in favor of the separation of India and the formulation of Pakistan. In any case, 14th of August, that's when Pakistan became independent. Him being in India, him and his family, there was a lot of bloodshed, a lot of chaos that they had to witness. So for the most part, in the entire month of September, August, Pakistan attains its independence, the British leave, there's Hindu-Muslim riots all over India. And he's, for the most part, him and his family, they're confined to their house. They cannot get out. There's a lot of chaos all around. When they finally get a chance to leave, there is something of a temporary prison that the Indian Army had built. In most of October, they spent in that prison. And it is in this confinement and in this imprisonment that he said that he experienced the Quran speaking to him directly in the writings of Maulana Maududi. And that too, when in that the particular parts that he was reading was Maulana Maududi, the theme of Surah Yusuf. So his confinement, imprisonment, and then the message of Surah Yusuf, that's where he felt it was as relevant as it was.
And he's only 15 at the time.
He's only 15 at the time. And by this time, he's read Iqbal, Abul Kalam Azad, Abul Ala Maududi. So he's been exposed to, and even he says that at this time, where he wanted to access some of Abul Kalam Azad's writings, but the storekeeper who had them wouldn't give it to him, and he wanted to test him. He's like, even though I did not know much Persian, or any Persian for that matter, he tested me in Persian. Somehow I got the answers right, and I was able to access those writings, and they significantly influenced my thought even at that time. So in any case, the release from the prison meant walking with a caravan. It was a 20-day trek that finally resulted in him and his family reaching Pakistan, the newly formed country at the time, with a lot of aspirations. Him, a lot of other youngsters, the general public at large, with the slogans of Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah, had struggled, sacrificed, seen a lot of grief, a lot of loss all around them, and they had a lot of hope and aspirations from the country itself. In any case, he continued.
So our non-Urdu speaking audience, Pakistan's slogan was Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. What does Pakistan mean? It means La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah. As we will see, Dr. Israr talks quite a bit about that promise as being constitutive of Pakistan. And I'm sure you will talk about this, that how betraying that promise, it's almost a covenant, a special covenant that Pakistan as a country, as a people have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and betraying that perhaps it has a more severe and direct consequence.
Yeah. So we will come to those specific ayat that he alluded to, and he pretty much said that this is Pakistan being mentioned in the Quran with those ayats. So as we get there. So he started his matriculation in Lahore, Government College Lahore, one of the more prestigious institutions, and he got 4th position in the whole province. Those of us who come from there know what a big deal that is to attain that. It's like a board examination where you're competing against students from at least the entire province, if not the entire country. And so he was earmarked for big achievements. He was identified as having this genius about him, this incredible ability, which he speaks about even in the beginning of his medical college when he joined King Edward Medical College. Again, getting into that is a huge achievement. But in the very beginning, he was attaining all the laurels that could be expected of a top student until he became the member of the Jamiat, which was the student wing of Jamaat Islami, which was founded by Maulana Maududi. At that point, he decided that my medical studies, they're second priority for me. My primary focus is going to be the learning and teaching of Quran, which he took from Maulana Maududi. And by this time, his personal interaction with Maulana Maududi had begun, to the point that he was welcome in his household, even as a young man in his early 20s. And Maulana Maududi was quite senior at that time. But Dr. Israr Ahmed he could call on him. He said, even at one point, I called on him in the middle of the night, and I was welcome. So that's the level of closeness he had with him. And it was here that he also hosted Amin Hasan Islahi Sahab, Maulana Amin Hasan Islahi. He hosted his Muntakhab Nisab. So he was the organizer and he had the students attend this. And we're going to talk about how Dr. Israr himself developed that Muntakhab Nisab later on. After and again, as a rukun of the Jamiat, he became the Nazim pretty quickly, Jamiat that is, and he's teaching Maulana Maududi's work to others. He's already developing a reputation as a very eloquent speaker and somebody who has this ability to proclaim the message and connect the people, the audience that he's talking to, with the Quran. So that's already starting. And as he finishes his medical college, he's become a doctor. Now he officially joins Jamaat Islami. However, he was very quickly disenchanted, if you will, because what he saw among the people of the Jamaat was personally very disappointing for him. He felt that so much of that which the Jamaat was about prior to 1947, which was about understanding the Quran, teaching the Quran, disciplining an entire group of people around the message of the Quran, their character development around the Quran, which was so necessary. That has taken second priority, and politics and the predominant political system has become so much of a priority that the education, the training, the Quran-centered discipline that's not happening anymore. So that was a concern for him. He wrote against, again, as a young member, he wrote a 200-page complaint of all the problems that he saw ideologically and practically within Jamaat Islami. The Machi Ghot, this was an incident in which the Jamaat has this congregation in which he was even designated as a quote-unquote leader of the opposition because he has all these complaints. And there's a back and forth, an argument that he's having with Maulana Maududi himself. And shortly after this, he resigns from Jamaat Islami, saying that it has left the ideology that it had in the 40s, and he doesn't see it achieving what says it's going to achieve because it's entered into electoral politics, and that Quran teaching and that education of the masses, that is not taking place. So this was his resignation from Jamaat. Again, when we talk about Mullah, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that. From 57 to before he formulated his own organizations, he's moving back and forth between, he even spent some time in Tablighi Jamaat. One of his fundamental beliefs was that a Muslim has to be a part of a practicing Muslim organization, that without a Jamaat, to continue to discipline yourself, to continue to work on your character is very, very difficult. And that you need to you need the company of the righteous people to continue to grow. So without whatever knowledge that he had attained by that time, which was far more than anybody around him in his company, of his age group for sure, he still made sure that with those people working on himself. He also, during this time, got a master's in Islamic studies, and he is continuing to meet with other people, the senior people who left Jamaat Islami, to see if an other organization along the same principles as Jamaat Islami prior to partition could be formed again. Maulana Amin Hasan Islahi being one of the core people that he was continuously in conversation with, but others as well. From 1971, by this time he's reached the age of almost 40, he decides that he is not going to continue to practice medicine. He actually mentions another incident, which again says a lot of his honesty. He said that while he was practicing medicine, he established a little laboratory next to his clinic. whatever tests he orders, investigations that he orders for his patients, they can just get it from his clinic with the laboratory associated with his clinic. He said, when I established that laboratory, I realized that I'm writing more tests for my patients in order to make more profits. He's like, the day I realized that, the next day I shut down that laboratory, that I'm now writing unnecessary investigations that they may not need, or at least he had that suspicion of himself. Again, something that a lot of us.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful habit that we all need.
So many of us physicians, we say we fraternize with pharmaceutical companies, and, we have our own clinics and we have our pharmacies within. And we're like, no. Our practice is so pure, and we're not worried about the profits that come from that and those, vested interests that maybe we don't have any vested interests, but that level of suspicion that anybody who has a baseline recognition of the human self and the guiles of one's own self, which again became a very central part of his teachings as well, that he got from the Quran. So in 1972, he establishes his first institution called Anjuman Khuddam al-Quran. And in his words, from the womb of Anjuman Khuddam al-Quran, a couple of years later came Tanzim Islami. A little later, we're going to talk about each of these institutions separately and what they were about and what he wanted to attain from them. Late in the 1970s, he had his first appearance on Pakistan television with Al-Kitab. This was the TV show that he did. The most famous of the TV shows that he did was called Al-Huda. So now we're talking late 70s, early 80s. To be on national television at that time means every single person in the country is watching just you.
Right.
There's no 3, 5, 10, 20, 200 TV channels.
Right.
There is no internet, nothing. Everybody just has one option, whatever is on national television. And so regularly he was on national television teaching the Quran. So literally it was at that time that he became a household name. He did have very good terms with the martial law administrator of that time, General Zia-ul-Haq. He even wanted Dr. Israr to become a minister of religious affairs. Dr. Israr refused that because he saw that as, for what it was, a political front. He's like, we're not going to be allowed to do anything. We'll be blamed for them not being able to achieve anything. So he completely refused to do that. And he was throughout one of the major critics of General Zia-ul-Haq, that even though you are using the name of Islam and apparently you're establishing this Shariat court, you're not allowing it to do anything. And you're going to be blameworthy for this, and you are responsible for this. He was very openly critical, despite that he still gets Sadara Imtiaz, which is one of the highest or higher civilian medals that are awarded. In 1991, he started Tehreek-e-Khilafat as well. A lot of people would be very critical of this attempt. How is this different from Tanzim Islami? Why was this necessary? Perhaps out of desperation. By this time, he is getting quite despondent that those results that he once thought he was very close to, or he could at least see from afar, they did not seem to be coming. This is also around the time period in the 90s, early 2000s is when Dr. Zakir Naik starts Peace TV and invites Dr. Israr over. So that's now he has a broader audience beyond Pakistan into India and all over. However, in 2002, he resigned from Tanzim leadership because multiple ailments that he had knee surgeries, back surgeries, kidney illnesses. The first time I met him was at a hospital, in fact, in a psychiatrist's office, and he had practically seen every single specialty in the hospital already for all the different problems that he was facing. The last time I met him was in 2010, and as I was to learn later, he wasn't supposed to come at the conference that we invited him to, that I was his host for. He wasn't supposed to come because of the pain, doctor's orders, family's precautions, but he wanted. Despite all of that, he got injections for pain so he could just tolerate the ride from Lahore to Islamabad in order to be able to deliver the talks that he did. I'd invited him I'd requested him if he could do an entire series on the Seerah. And because he couldn't do that, he didn't have the time or the health for it. When I asked him again for the conference, I can't say no to you twice. So
I met him in 2001, I believe, 2000 or 2001. I do not recall. I think it may have been 2000 when he came to Northern California, and he has this very larger than life personality, loud, strong voice. And so I remember he was in Northern California at the Muslim Community Association, and I recall his speeches. And that was the only and last time I met him. After that, he came to the US.
I think it was probably around that time, from what I'm told, that he also had a series of meetings in which he delivered talks to university professors in the United States. It was called a round table or something that he had with them. One of the professors told him that when we look at you, you have such an aura that you remind us of Jesus. However, nobody in this university is going to take you seriously because you don't speak the language of the academy. You don't have that academic background that all the people here have, so you're not going to be taken very seriously despite that presence that you bring. In any case, in April 2010, he passed away at 7 years of age, leaving an incredible legacy. In fact, the night before he passed away, I'm going to talk about the ayat from Surah Hajj, where he talks about Jahidu fillahi haqqa jihadihi huwa jtabakum. He has chosen. Those were the precise ayat that I'd heard of him in his Bayan al-Quran. And I remember being so shaken up with such an incredible sense of responsibility that he had the ability to communicate. And the next morning, I woke up to the news that he passed away, and that it was quite shaking for a lot of us. Just a month before he'd asked, because I repeatedly invited him to conferences and talks and had interviewed him, all that. He's like, come and visit me in Lahore. And I was never able to do that. He passed away before that.